Hello, everyone. Ian from BetSided here today. I'm joined by a very special guest, Tony Casillas, former NFL defensive lineman, two-time Super Bowl winner with the Dallas Cowboys, and honestly, one of the greatest college football players of all time, in my opinion. He is here to talk to me. We're going to talk football, NFL. I'm going to have to talk to him about Oklahoma, unfortunately, but also he is part of the NFL Alumni Association. Huddle up. Let's talk obesity campaign. We're going to get into that as well. But Tony, thank you for joining me. Let's rip the Band-Aid right off the start here. I had to talk to you about Oklahoma. I need your thoughts on kind of what direction this team is heading in. Do you have anything positive to say about Oklahoma right now in terms of how they're performing this season? Because it hasn't been great. I got to be honest.
Well, first, I was going to say thank you for having me in, but since you just opened up with that, I don't know. It is Thursday, and I thought the 24-hour rule would go in effect, but it's kind of lingered. That was just that was a nightmare. I'm watching that game, and I look at that series, OU Texas OU game, and you look at the year before that, they were up by 28 points. I'm thinking maybe there's some. There's a comeback, and maybe Texas will only play the first half, and not play the second half. But I'm lost for words, like everyone else. I mean, that was a pure domination. Nothing was good about it. The only thing good about that game, Ian, is the field goal kicker missed the field goal, and so I think there's a lot to be said for not hanging a half 100 on us, like my old coach Barry Switzer used to say. But it was a pure out debacle, and just it was a nightmare.
I like that positive spin. You avoided the 50 burger at least. But let's switch to something a little bit more positive. Let's talk about your Dallas Cowboys here, because 4-1. I don't think if you would have asked people with Dak Prescott out early in the year, would they be 4-1 at this point? I don't think anyone would have said yes. But here they are, 4-1, just coming off an upset over the Rams. But I want to talk to you specifically about their defense. Obviously, with you being a defensive lineman in your career, talk to me about this Cowboys defense. What has made them so successful this season compared to last year? They're good last year, but they've taken a significant step forward, especially with their pass rush.
Well, if I had to really just pick one thing, I think it's the depth and the flash of different players. They were good last year because of all the takeaways and Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons' his rookie year, but they were good in a lot of different places. And maybe that's kind of perpetuated because of Micah Parsons he's so dynamic. But there's a lot of other players are getting involved. And really, I think this is, Dan Quinn's second year as a defensive coordinator. And it's just really, it's kind of caught on like fire. It's hard to describe, when a quarterback is under assault, when he gets an opportunity third and long, second and long situations, and they can do what they can. It's all about confidence, and they're playing with so much swagger, so much confidence. And I think what they're able to do is that they're all on the same thread. There's no mental errors, there's no mistakes, and I think a lot of guys are thriving off a lot of other guys' success. And I think this is probably the most, I would say, team with that much depth that I've seen in some time, that really has really quality and really good players that really just contribute every week. And it's just, I thought the defense was great last year, but it's where it is now and the way they rush the passer. I mean, it's a nightmare. I mean, the quarterbacks cannot find a way to get around that, and that's what they're doing. They're just dominating the line of scrimmage.
Have they done enough in your eyes to be considered a true contender this year? Because if you look at something like the betting odds, they're still like sixth on the odds list, even just to win the NFC, despite being 4-1, despite having the success without Dak Prescott. So in your eyes, have they done enough to be considered an actual contender in the NFC, or are they just kind of, let's get to the playoffs and see what happens from there?
Well, I mean, you look at the teams they played, besides the Tampa Bay game when they lost Dak, they've gone 4-1. They got a backup quarterback that doesn't make mistakes. And I think that they're built for the long haul. It's all about, we all know it's all about injuries. You stay healthy. But we said that about Dak, and their offense last week, I mean, they played the Rams. I don't care what you say about the Rams. Rams won the Super Bowl last year. Yeah. You can say whatever you want. Their offensive line, it's guys off the streaks are filling in, but it doesn't really matter. They're a good team. And so I think this week is going to be an amazing Sunday night matchup with the Eagles. You got two teams. The NFC East is really starting to look like the old days, and you got three teams that got great records. And so I think that this is going to really find out a lot about them. And I think it's just about injuries. It's about how they can sustain and what they did last week. If they can run the football 60-40 and wait till Dak gets back, I think this team is built for the long haul, not just getting in the playoffs, but I'm talking about getting to that prize that has avoided them for so many years, the Super Bowl.
Let's talk about that game this Sunday night. Like you said, huge game. This is really going to be a true litmus test for this Cowboys team. Odds makers don't have a lot of faith in them. 6-point underdogs. I don't know if you've noticed the point spread or if that's something that you look at all, but do you think that's disrespectful compared to how the Cowboys have performed this season to now be almost touchdown underdogs to this Eagles team?
Well, I think it's, as a player, you don't really care about that. I mean,
right.
They said last week, I thought the Rams would beat it. I picked the Rams to win, and what I know. So you really don't. It's going to be a tremendous test. But I think you got two similar teams. I think Jalen Hurts, we're going to see how good he is because this defense is going to bring it. So I don't know. I don't think as a player, as a team, you don't think about that. Look, it's old, us against the world. Everyone has a respect, and so. I think it's much warranted. You think about Cooper Rush, you're thinking, okay, he's got to be tested this week. He's got to put up more points. The defense, are they going to finally, the dam going to break? And really, they just kind of kept everything in check and doing exactly what they need to do, and their capability of making big plays. I think they're right on it. Would I take the Eagles? No, I'm going to take the points, and I'm going to bet on the Cowboys to win.
I love it. Speaking of the NFC East here, if you look at their divisional odds, the Cowboys actually enter the season as the favorites to win the division. 4-1 start, you'd think they'd be at least close to the top, but I guess because of how the Eagles have performed, Cowboys down at 3-1 now to win the NFC East. I don't think this division is locked up by any stretch of the imagination. What are your thoughts on that? They can still come back and win this division, do you think?
Well, the Giants, you look at the Eagles, and those are rivalry games. You don't know what's going to happen. And that's the thing about if you went on the road. And I think if you went back-to-back road trips against the Rams and the Eagles, that does a lot. It does a lot for your confidence. And I think it's just going to be one of those years where it's going to be a lot of teams will be grinding it out. And who's lucky? As I mentioned, what team stays healthy. But I think it's great for the NFC East finally, because it's been kind of the laughing stock of the NFL, and it's good to see there be some parity in the National Football League or in the NFC East when it comes to that. So I just think that, again, if you have a great defense, going to keep you in the game, keep you in arm's length, then you're going to have a chance to win a lot of games regardless who's at quarterback.
Yeah, you mentioned the parity in the NFC East. Really, the whole NFC is kind of like that. You got the Eagles who are atop the conference right now, but then after that, like the Packers have stumbled a little bit. The Buccaneers haven't really looked the same. So are there any other teams in the NFC, maybe a dark horse, maybe someone who's a team that maybe not a lot of people are considering right now that you could think sneak into the NFC playoffs?
Well, you look at all the teams that were at the very top, the Green Bay. I don't know what Green Bay is going to happen with them. We know that Aaron Rodgers, he doesn't have Devontae Adams. The Vikings, to me, I think it's your point. I think it's wide open, man. I mean, really, it is. Right now, if the season stopped, look at the top teams in the NFC. So, I think I always kind of like to hold my opinion and really just kind of evaluate the halfway point in the season. You get to this, we're at over the quarter of the season, and we'll see which teams start to, the pretenders and contenders. But it's such a long season. But I think it's open to anyone. Arizona, you look at the 49ers. The 49ers look tough. So it's not the teams that people thought that would going into this year. Tampa Bay, when you have someone like Tom Brady and their defense gets going, they got enough playmakers. But I think it's anyone's game right now. It's anyone's league. It's anyone's opportunity in December to finish a race. And you just got to, as I mentioned, it's all about being lucky and depth. And, hopefully you don't have any catastrophic injuries.
I was hoping you were going to mention my favorite team, the team that drafted you, Tony, the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh, the Atlanta Falcons. I forgot. Now, that's another team that really, we could get into the pass interference or not pass interference or roughing the passer, which was crazy. But I do like Atlanta Falcons uniforms, though. Those are badass, man. I do like that.
Yeah, I think they're actually going with the old retro uniforms this weekend. Looking forward to that. I want to switch conferences here. I do want to get your thoughts on really, you got Cowboys Eagles big Sunday night football game, but to be fair, I think what might be the biggest game of the week is the Chiefs and the Bills, the rematch of last year's playoff game that went into overtime, actually. One of the craziest playoff games I've watched in my life. So what are your thoughts on that game? Because I think it's clear they're the cream of the crop in the AFC. It's a game that we're probably going to see again in the playoffs this year. The Bills, 2.5-point favorites, so odds makers are giving them the slight edge in this one. Do you think they're deserving of that? Do you think they are the better team than the Chiefs? Or do you think Mahomes is going to get the better of Josh Allen once again?
I don't know. I think after last year, when they, the overtime and really the way it was decided on, last team actually to score, which I'm glad that they changed it this year. Josh Allen to me, that dude to me is a cool dude. He's a warrior. He's got an attitude. He's very concise. He can hit you if it's legs with a big throw with Diggs, and their defense is amazing. I watch them play, and so they complement each other. And to me, that's a tremendous team. Now, Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes, you watch him and Travis Kelce, and just watch. I always thought Andy Reid, he kind of looks like a guy that really is kind of boring, and he wouldn't be this guy that's real innovative with his offensive play calling. But when you have someone like Patrick Mahomes, you could be a little bit more creative. But I got so much respect for Andy Reid and what he's done. When he was at the Eagles, obviously much respect there. But this is going to be the game. This is going to be the prelude, like you said, to possibly the AFC Championship game, because they're head and shoulders above everyone else in that conference, without a doubt.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I do have to ask you, because you did bring it up earlier, you alluded to it. As a defensive lineman yourself, it has to kill you to watch these roughing the passer calls. We've seen a couple bad ones. The Falcons and the Bucks last week. There was another one in the primetime game. I forget which one it was, but that has to absolutely kill you to watch these roughing the passer calls.
It really does. It's so subjective, and I know the officials have been told that you got to make these calls. You got to send a message, and I think everyone has heard the message loud and clear that the calls that you make aren't correct, and it's very punitive. Look at the game with Kansas City and the Raiders. The refs basically gave them 3 points because it could have been more punitive. Could have been a touchdown, and it was such a great play by Chris Jones. Stripping the ball, didn't land on him, and so I hate to say this, but is it going to get to the point where we review roughing the passer?
Right.
Is there going to be a point? And I understand this. It's real time. It's fast. You don't know. You're making just a quick second decision. But the one with Tom Brady was ridiculous. But certainly the one with Chris Jones. That was just a great play. I didn't see anything malicious about that. And I just love the way Troy Aikman, and when he's calling the game, or he quarterbacks are piling on and saying how bad it is. And that was a guy that had 6 or 7 concussions back in the day. So they got to correct it. They got to meet and they got to decide, look, this is going to be an issue. When there's a big play involved and that comes into play, it's going to be really embarrassing for the National Football League.
Especially in the Falcons-Bucks game where that decided the game. That was, end of the game. Decided that ref basically made that call, and that was it. Falcons didn't get a chance to get the ball back. So, I agree. It's something's got to change, or they need to take accountability, or something has to happen there. I do want to talk to you, though. Obviously, like I mentioned at the top, you are an ambassador for the NFL Alumni Association, the Huddle Up, Let's Talk Obesity campaign. Talk to me a little bit about that and explain it for the folks at home.
Well, it's raising awareness for obesity, and the program that we're doing, it's creating awareness. I think as a former player, as you get older, you don't have the access to, the strength and conditioning. There's not a motivation for some guys to continue to take care of themselves. And, that kind of happens. You think you're going to stay young forever. Next thing you know, you're in your 50s and you're overweight. You don't have any type of fitness or wellness program. There's no longer, you lose kind of what your purpose is as far as competitiveness, because you kind of lose that once you leave the game. And so our advocate is for not just for former players. That's our goal, is to get guys involved and take care of yourself, create longevity, find a way that's going to, exercise your mind and your body. It doesn't matter what level of fitness you are, just do something and really just have longevity and living longer. I mean, as a defensive lineman, I mean, we all have residual issues with our body, but there's different levels of fitness you can do. I think the biggest, for me is when you talk about obesity is go to see a doctor, get a physical, know what your baseline is, know what your blood pressure is, your PSA, your cholesterol, have some accountability for that, like you did when you were a player in the National Football League, because, there's a lot of things you want to see. That's only the small part, the sample size of your life. And then you have your second life. And so, have some pride in yourself. I think as an athlete, you have pride in your craft about, staying in shape and making sure that you're performing and have accountability to your teams. Well, have accountability for yourself and for your family that wants you to live longer and be around and be able to feel good about yourself. And really, there's so many things that you can benefit from taking your exercise and eating well, going to the doctor, as opposed to just being this time bomb and not doing anything about it. So that's the biggest advocate, to reach out to people. As a Hispanic, when you talk about diabetes, it's very prevalent with Latin and Hispanics, and so you look at Hispanic heritage much, you want to really focus on that group. But I mean, for the whole picture is to really it's awareness. It's taking care of yourself, feeling good about yourself and your mind, soul, and body, and embracing that and making sure that you're doing those things and try to stay active, whatever it is, walking, playing golf, whatever it may be, going to the gym, something that's going to keep you going, 30 minutes a day will keep hopefully the doctor away. So that's what we're really just trying to encourage people, former players, and not only the players, but everyone else that is fighting that to take care of yourself and live longer.
Yeah, I love this topic. Something I relate to personally as well. I played college football up in Canada. I was a running back up there.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing for me. Great shape in college. Hasn't been as good since then. If I would have one piece of advice for those athletes, and obviously even athletes who just played at the college level like myself, I find what's been good for me is to find something else that's competitive, because I think that's what kind of drove me when I was in college to stay in shape and obviously work out on being on the football team, was being in a competitive sport. So even if you play like rec league soccer, I played for a little bit, anything like that, golf you mentioned, I think that can kind of help these guys who are used to having that competition that keeps them active.
Yeah, find your niche. I think when you guys get out of the game, it's like I'm surprised that I see so many former players. I'm much older than you, but still, you see guys that had been out that long, and you look at them like, what have you been doing? Well, obviously they've been eating well. You can't eat like when you were in the league, okay? Because you're young, you're vibrant, you're competitive. I mean, you have all the resources, but there's still those resources outside of that. And to your point, whether it's getting on the Peloton, whether it's, whatever it is, pickleball or, or intramural football or something that's going to keep your endorphins going and making your heart, get your heart rate up, and just kind of that euphoric, for me, I think for a lot of guys too, with, the cognitive and concussions that we suffered and longevity of that. I mean, it's so good for your mind. And, you don't have to go in there and work out for 2 hours. Just do something that's going to release that and feel good about yourself. It's not all about sometimes, how you look in the mirror. It's like how you feel internally. That's, I think sometimes we miss that. We worry about what we look like as opposed to how we feel.
Thank you so much for that, Tony. Is there anywhere people can look up any more about this campaign?
Yeah, just go to my Huddle Up. It's as you mentioned, Huddle Up Against Obesity. Let's Talk Obesity. That's the that website. And go to NFLalumni.com. You can find the information there, how you can get involved and kind of hear this testimony. I know Hines Ward and Coach Romeo Crennel, they're part of this campaign, and other players. Huddle Up, Let's Talk Obesity, because as I mentioned, it's not just former athletes. It's it's a whole human body. It's the whole population that fight that, whether you're 30, whether you're 40, 50, 60, whatever it is, every day. It's, that's something we're trying to, to accomplish and feeling good about ourselves.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining me today, Tony. Best of luck to your Sooners. I hope they get back on track and go Cowboys Sunday night.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I like the way you kind of finished it up, Ian, and let me feel good about myself. But I still can't believe that we're 9-point favorite over Kansas. I know it's not a basketball team this year, but I'm trying to figure it out. But nevertheless, thanks for having me, buddy.
Love it. Thank you.